All right, we are now broadcasting, and it's just the two of us yet, but we are having some people join us. So I want to greet everybody joining us right now and say hi. My name is Leah, and I'm here with Ruby, and this is Life's Experts. I would like to encourage you folks to just have a look around the app, and I'm going to repeat this a few times in the beginning, but have a look around the app. We've got a chat room where you can ask us questions. We've got anonymous questions where hey, there we go. We've got someone greeting us. Hello there. You can hear us? Everything okay? We've got image and sound. Yeah? Please, awesome. There we go. So we've got people in the chat room already, and we are looking to have an amazing time with Ruby. I want to share that if you want to ask us questions anonymously, there is an option, the Q&A option, and you can choose to send us an anonymous question. Even if it isn't, we wouldn't drop any names throughout this webinar, so don't worry about it. I want to share as well why I invited Ruby to do a webinar with me on the topics of women, women's empowerment, religion, culture, and all of these. It's because I find it so fascinating and so important for us all to talk about women's empowerment as a thing that it belongs to everybody. It's a concept that should apply to everybody, not just for white folk in the West. And I found Ruby's work and her blog posts and everything, and I thought, you know what, I need to have her on, and I need to do something with her because she sounds amazing, and she sounds like she's someone that can talk about these things for days and still enrich you so much. And I thought, I really need this. I need this for myself and for people that would join in and watch. So for those people that are here today, please do feel empowered to ask questions, to throw in opinions. It's all good. And Ruby, I would rather you introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, because I've been blabbing now for a minute or two, and tell us who you are, what you do, where you're from, like all of these things that you feel important and you want to share about. Give us your background.
Thank you so much, Leah. Thank you for having me on this webinar. I find it fascinating, as well as very touched by that people want to talk about these things, because the more we talk about these things, the more we resolve, the more we become aware, and the more we say no to things that are not okay. My introduction: I was born in the slums of Karachi, Pakistan. So I don't know whether you guys are aware of the geography, but Karachi is like the southernmost part of Pakistan. It's next to the ocean, no mountains, and I lived in the concrete jungle pretty much for the first 27 years of my life. Of course, we were from the slums, so life was difficult, and I saw probably culture and religion being practiced at its worst. And I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about a lot of those things. Through so I call it the first 27 years of kind of brainwashing of me in terms of how women are treated and how they think about themselves. In 2000, though, I then left Pakistan and lived in a few countries. So I've lived in Singapore, I've lived in Sydney, and then I've lived in Melbourne, and now I'm living in Christchurch. And I would say that I started living only after I left Pakistan. And I realized through my own journey what had happened before and the impact that it had on me, which was, I do not matter. My needs aren't important. I should say yes to men. And if I think about myself, then it's not okay. I need to hide myself. I need to become invisible. And I'm ugly. this was the starting point when I left Pakistan to where I am today, where I know a lot about myself. I own my own sexuality. I know my own sensuality, and one can never say one is there, but it's a journey, and I feel privileged to be here and how I feel about myself today. So after doing a lot of healing of my own in my own journey, I started my first initiative was a website called Healing Wounds Together, which was more focused around sexual abuse of children and how that impacts their sexuality. And I talked about and shared about how it impacted me, and the journey kind of moved on. And I did create a small community of my own, and I started influencing. And through that, I realized that sexual abuse is just sort of a symptom. There are bigger problems that need to be resolved. And that's where the Unshaming project was born. It hasn't been long since I've changed the name. But now I'm focusing on the systematic abuse of women. So when I say systematic abuse, it's so inbuilt into the system that we automatically say, I do not matter. No one has to tell us that you do not matter. And that's quite fascinating for me. So anyway, I have been talking for a long time.
No, it's so very fascinating. And the things that really come to me is that you're making your work grow with you. So you started by processing your understanding and your experiences from childhood abuse, and then you're progressing through your own empowerment as a grown-up woman and what it means in the context that you have lived and live now, so that your projects are growing with you and evolving with you. And I think that is probably the best way to go forward with your own journey. And I admire this, is just extremely powerful in my opinion. And the question that I have for you now is like, why do you bring in people into this? Like, a lot of people may see it as a private affair and I need to do this on my own, but you've looked into your experiences and you've said to yourself maybe like, wow, this is too big, or I don't know what brought this idea in your head. Why open up, why share, considering there is so much shame about all of these issues that you talk about nowadays, and it's so difficult for many to even connect the dots and speak about these topics. It's so controversial.
It is. How about I blame my mother for it?
Are we going Freudian now?
So
or
it
is
is
more positive?
It is actually all started with my mother. So when I was young, so when I'm talking about like 6-year-old or 8-year-old or kind of really early years, I was in an environment, so Pakistan is an Islamic country, so everyone around me was, or is, 99% of the population is Muslim. And there were a lot of, as I say, cultural norms that are practiced in the name of Islam. So for example, do you know the term mullah or Maulvi or something like that?
No. What is
So
it?
Maulvi or mullah are the people who call for prayer in the mosques. They're also kind of religious scholars, or they appear to be. So if you have a religious question, you would go to these mullahs or Maulvis. And of course, there are different levels, but these are the people who hold power. Mm. And of course, they have their program. So I am a young child. I do not know anything. And there's this Maulvi on the radio saying, women should not study. They should not go to school, because if they go to school, then they will not learn the domestic chores. And if they do not learn the domestic chores, how are they going to serve their family? So in his opinion, women should not go to school. And my mother, I'm a child, so I'm going, yep, that's all fine. And my mother listens to him and says, he is a she says something that I'm not allowed to say. I'm not allowed to swear, probably, but she sweared. And then she said, how can this be logical? If if a woman is not educated, that she cannot raise children who are aware, who know about themselves. So it seems illogical that you keep women chained in a home. And I go, oh my God, she's so right. And I do not have to accept status quo.
Yeah.
It was, and she would do that. She would go on rants, I'm being very polite when I am rephrasing what she should say. But I grew up learning and listening to her critiquing what did not make sense. And I started thinking for myself, oh, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me, because that does not seem fair. But I looked around me and everyone is behaving differently. So my neighbor girlfriend, when she got married, her mother told her, you're getting married, where you're going into, that's your home. You are to think of us as dead and think of them as your family. Only when you're dead that you come out of there. Before that, you cannot. Now, that's quite a strong thing to say. So that girl, I know the kind of abuses she has been through, but she doesn't have, or did not have, any support of the family to say, even if I'm abused, there is someone who I can go back to who would say, yes, I will take care of you. She's not educated, because obviously from the cultural perspective, women are not supposed to study. So now she's stuck in a situation and she's not independent enough to actually make a life for herself. And I saw this.
And that's the thing, I think you had this very much more analytical and critical thinking coming from your mom, that really allowed you to assimilate what's going on and understand that this is not really right. Whereas your friend may not have actually understood that what is happening in her family and what she's pushed to do is actually abusive, and is a technique that has been used against women for freaking centuries, and not only in Pakistan. I'm from Eastern Europe, and I know how women would move in with their husband's family, and they go visit their family, and ties are not cut in Bulgaria. It's not like this. But I know of women whose families have just been like, oh yeah, marrying away, go away now. And this is a way to uproot a woman from her comfortable zone, where she has support network and resources, and people would notice if someone is abusing her, and move her somewhere else where she's invisible and nobody cares about her because she's the new one and everybody's already caught up in their lives. So what you're talking about is, everywhere, with the whole concept of women moving away from home and going to live with a dude is kind of the first step that most abusers will take nowadays. They'll be like, oh, I need to move for my job, you move with me, right? And then few months down the line, they may be beating the crap out of you, and you have nobody to turn to that can see you and all of that.
Yeah. The funny part about all of this is, actually it's not funny, I shouldn't say that, it's ironic, but those women were considered heroes. So the culture would say, oh, you are sacrificing your needs, Allah will reward you in heaven. So in the afterlife, you will be rewarded. So the whole purpose of life is to self-sacrifice, so that afterwards, they would get the reward. And because it's culturally embedded, for a woman to think that her needs matter, that's a no-no, because suddenly she is not going to be rewarded in the eyes of Allah, because the only way she's going to be rewarded is by sacrificing her needs. So the concept is so embedded that men don't have to do this. The women do this to other women, because it's the mothers who teach their daughters to do the same. My auntie my own auntie, she would say, it's okay for a man to hit. So what if a man hits his wife? It's not a big deal, you know, like just get on with it. And these are the kind of things that I ended up hearing, which was quite contradictory, because on one hand, my mom was saying something completely different, but everywhere else, things were happening in a different kind of way. So I don't think I ever felt home in Pakistan.
Yeah, because you had this very alternative point of view that didn't match what society has taught you. And I can't say that I've had the same or similar experience to that extent, but growing up, for me, it was like, my dad is very much a critical thinker. He's more of a loner, and he just never cared whether people liked him or not. He was just like, I'm being true to myself. I'm not gonna try fit in those boxes, which was my my way of seeing things differently and standing up my ground and be like, you know what, I when everybody was starting smoking, for instance, I was like, no thanks, you know, and I got actually respected for that. But it's very different because I feel like Muslim women don't have a choice, and that the punishment for them if they don't obey these rules and norms is quite severe. So there was no punishment for me for being a disobedient teenager that literally went against all teenagers' norms, like you start smoking and you do drugs and, you know, all of these things. Like, there was no punishment for me for being disobedient in that way, but neither was there much punishment for the friends that actually did smoke and did drink and all of that. But I can't begin to imagine how different this is if, for instance, you were 17 and said, I don't know, I'm not marrying and I'm going to university and things like that. How was that? You know, these contra norm desires and wishes that you may have had, what would have happened, or what did happen if you did express these?
It's quite interesting. So all girls around me, they were, so the only thing parents would do is they would send their daughters to school, but after the primary school or maybe 10 years or 8 years, then that's pretty much it. Then the girl is now 13, 14. She now has to stay home, learn the domestic chores. So I know my girlfriend neighbor, she would help her mom prepare the food, right? Then she would ask the boys to come in. So she would prepare not the table, we had the kind of a tablecloth on the floor, because obviously I lived in the slums, so we didn't really have dining tables or anything like that. So she would prepare the plates, put the food on the table, and then call the boys in. They would come, eat the food. Sometimes women will eat together, sometimes not, depending upon if you need bread that needs to be warm. So then she would keep cooking the bread so that the guys would eat the warm bread, and then they will eat, and then they would leave, and then she would do the cleaning. So this is what my girlfriend was doing, right? And I'm going to school. Then her parents took her off the school because that's it. Now she has to learn all of this. And I was really good in studying. So my mom is like, yeah, just study what you want. So I was the only one from my school to go to a college that no one else did, none of the girlfriends in my community. I was the first mechanical engineer for my whole community. So when I talk about my community, that would mean at that point in time, there were 800 families that migrated from India to Pakistan. So I was the first one. Before me, they were, girls weren't allowed. They could only become a teacher or a doctor. That's pretty much it. No other professions were available. But I was the first one to actually have done that. And I could only do that because my mom said, oh, you want to do this? Go and do this. It's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna do this. And it was kind of automatic. My father was a bit more, or he's no longer with us now, but he was a little bit more traditional. But my mother was so strong that when my father says, oh, what about if someone comes to ask for her hand? And she's like, that problem isn't there now. we'll just see when that happens. And then there you go. And then, so I got to go to university, and there were about 210 students, only 10 girls. You know, in the universities in those days, there were gangsters and all kinds of things. We were bullied, and because mechanical engineering is not a girls thing. But having said that, I was the best welder, one of the best welders. Me and my girlfriend, we were the best welders in the class, so that was pretty cool. So I got to do that, and then suddenly it's like, oh, what am I going to do now? Of course I'm going to do job, because I'm going to join some firm. So I guess I automatically got into the habit of not looking at others around me to know what I wanted to do. I kind of went, okay, the only way there is for me is to study and to educate, because there's no other way. It was almost like an obsession. I don't even know. So I didn't talk to boys, because obviously in that culture, you don't talk to boys. I talked to boys. It was actually quite funny. In my university days, of course, it was a co-education, and that was the first institute. Before that, it was always the girls' college or girls' school or something like that. So when I had to study with boys, they had to first come to my house, and my mother had to vet them, because it was such a different thing for her. In my whole community, she hadn't seen that. So now she was faced with things that she didn't know how to handle, because no one else was doing those things. I was the only one. There was quite a learning process for her and for me to navigate our way around. But if I didn't include her, then all the people, all the men, they would come and they would say, she's a slut because she is going out and doing things that other girls aren't doing, because no one else was doing that. So I needed her on my side. So I mean, honestly, if she hadn't done that for me, I would right now not be where I am today.
Wow. And this is the importance of having someone that supports you and is there for you and acknowledges your desires and needs, and it's like, you know what, I don't care about society. This is my kid, and whatever they want, they'll have. Full stop. Yeah. So kudos to your mom.
Yeah. And I think what she did for me is, I mean, I had to carve my own path in a way, but what she did for me, she gave me permission to not accept the norms. And that was such a big gift, because I went, okay, it doesn't feel right. I don't care if it's coming from a Maulvi or a mullah. This does not feel right. Allah wouldn't be like that. It is not fair. Allah would be fair. And that's how I started questioning everything. And I think I kind of got used to being the only one, because no one else was doing it right. So it was a lonely journey, because everywhere I looked around, I didn't find guidance, because my mom obviously came from a different environment, different slums. She didn't know the world that I was living in, how to help me navigate into that world. All she could do was give me the permission and encouragement, but then I had to carve my own path. So even in Pakistan, and when I left Pakistan, I felt very lonely, because I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Now I'm in this world and there's no one to ask. And I think that's what, I think what my mom did for me is that's what I want to do. I want to create an environment where I can challenge the norms in a way that it reaches people. Because unless we challenge, right, it's our individual journey. Unless a woman says, nope, that does not sound okay, right? And then maybe she can't do anything for herself, but she can do something for her child. My mother was the first one to realize that's abuse, and she could not save herself, but she saved me. So maybe I can inspire other women who maybe they cannot save themselves, but they can save their daughters. And that's how the whole, I guess, the questioning of norms, things that we do not think about, that come across. Why is Allah called a He? In all the religions, Allah is He.
God is a man.
Oh my God.
And yeah.
So and I go, that doesn't make any sense. And they do say that God is genderless, but then he's called a he. Oh my God. And I subconsciously always say, oh, I hope he does that for me. And I'm referring to Allah. And then I go, oh my God, I don't want to say he, I want to say
Yeah.
she, but it just doesn't come naturally to me. And this is how much of the brainwashing there is in the society today. So we think, oh, Molvis are all the males. Allah is a male, family head is a male. I get a name of a male when I get married and whatever. Oh, my males must be better because they are getting the importance. Decision making is males.
Yeah.
It just goes on and on. My girlfriend, she would, so this didn't happen in our house, so I always have to go back to my friends, right? So she would go into her house and she would ask her mother, can I go out and play? Mom would say, ask your father. If the father is not around, she would say, ask your brother. If the older brother is not around, she has to ask her younger brother.
So
But
it was
it's the
always the
male
male
who would give
making the
permission.
decision. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a child, you go, oh my God, I always have to ask males for permission. So, and it's inbuilt. As a child, when you tell a child they have to seek permission from a male, then they think, women's are just like that. I don't have to ask my mother. My mother is not important because
Yeah.
she's a woman. And that's the systematic abuse. My mother wasn't like that. She's like, she would say yes or she would say no, and then that would be the end of it. So I'm gonna raise those things as questions, things that are so subtle in the cultures which are patriarchal, and that have nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with Allah or Islam or anything like that. I would say Allah would be fair. And if anything that's not based on love, compassion, forgiveness, justice, equality, then that's not Islam or any religion for that matter.
I think, okay, I need to say here, I'm an atheist, because like people need to know, but the thing that has always come to me is that religion is a method, a system that is used against people by those in power. And I've always seen religion as created in the image of the powerful for the purpose of the powerful. And it just, when you say about, for instance, it's always a he, because we live in a very patriarchal society. Maybe if we find tribes where women are on top, maybe we'll be talking a lot more about goddesses and not so much gods, and perhaps that's something that I was listening a few days ago to about egalitarian societies, and the fact that in the recent, like, hundreds of years, is egalitarianism, dying more and more, that we are looking and craving it. But we were way more egalitarian back in days, and it seems like there was at one point or another a bit more respect to women before religion, the way we know it. So I'm not going to say before religion, because I think that we've always had some sort of religion. If it wasn't Allah, or if it wasn't Jesus, it was God Ra, it was Zeus, it was such and such. So I think that religions change, but the problem is who is the voice for these religions. Who says what's right, what's wrong, because we can see it very easily how the same story from, say, the Bible can be twisted and interpreted in very different ways by people to use for their own purpose. And I'm like, really, is that how you really want to interpret it? And is that the moral that you want to take away from this story? And again, it's who uses this and how they use it, that I feel like this is a critical question that we need to answer.
Have you read Karen Armstrong? She's a theologist, a runaway nun, and she writes about all religions.
I
She's one of my
haven't.
she's one of my favorite authors. And then she talks about the power of mythology, or power of faith. So when we talk about faith, whether it's Islam or Christianity or Judaism, the power of faith is that it teaches us guidance. It allows us to connect with something that's beyond just our own bodies and our own minds. And there's a lot of power in it when we connect to something beyond us, whatever shape or form that is. It kind of tells us that we are in this together. It creates a unity, it creates connection, it creates meditation, it creates silence and peace. But the thing is that faith and the relationship with that higher self or higher power, it has to be personal journey. It cannot be doctrined, and it cannot be told by a mullah or a Catholic priest or anybody, because we have to find our own truth. Christianity went through the similar kind of period. So before Martin Luther, church had the hold, the language of the Bible is Latin, and that's it. This is the language of God, and we are the ones who can teach you this. So they are the ones. So as long as some people say, we know Islam, we know Quran, and you can't learn it until you come to us, that's it. You've got them chained. And this is how Islam is practiced these days. They say, oh, Arabic is the language of Allah, so you have to learn. But Arabic is so complex that you can't understand. Even if you try to read, you can't understand. So you have to go to a scholar. And that's where some people get to keep the power. That's where we are reliant on those people doing the right thing. And if they're not doing the right thing, which I do not believe they are at this point in time, then we are stuck, because now they are interpreting Quran. But I say, why do we listen to instructions? Why do we not go back to foundations? When parents teach their children, they do not say, if you meet a 70-year-old, say hello. They say, respect your elders, right? And that's a value. That's a general respect. Okay. Then whether it's a 70-year-old or a 60-year-old or a 65, doesn't really matter, because respect is what I have been taught. We do not listen to instructions. And what these mullahs and molvis, the people who have the power, they give you instructions. So you're always looking for more. Oh, but what if the guy is 62 and a half, should I be respectful or not? But if we are taught the value. So I think if instead of looking at the instruction, if we go the values, what are the values of Islam? Peace, love, compassion, regardless of anything else, then it doesn't really matter whether someone is an infidel or someone is Christianity. I am to respect. And if I am a model for these values, then I'm automatically inspiring people. I will not even go into jihad, but I do not need to do anything else. I am being the model of the change that I want to create. And I think that that's not how Islam is practiced today. And we need to raise our voices to say, Islam needs to be reinterpreted, because currently it's reinterpreted by these group of men who are holding it tight, and that's pretty much it. I'm sorry, this gets me really...
No. I'm all for the passionate speech. So just go for it. This is what keeps people interested as well.
Going for days.
No. It's much better to be passionate about the topic that you want to talk about than be monotonous and boring as hell. I must say, I completely agree. I think that religion has gone really much dogma style, and not so much values based. So I think that maybe, I can't say, I'm not a historian, I'm not a theologian or whatever the word is, but I don't think that people created religion with a bad intent throughout history, throughout the globe, etc. But I think that we always crave as human beings. I'm a psychologist, so I think that there's always this thing in us that goes us and them. And when it comes to religion, I think that we've split women and men, especially in Islam, and definitely in Christianity as well. Because if you read some of the horrors that Christian women do experience even today, hello, in modern 21st century 2020 Alabama, the States, you're like, whoa, this is a war on women through religion, empowered by the state. But I think that there is definitely this divide between men and women, and because we do talk about God as a he, we tend to undervalue women a lot. And the thing that I've had an experience with was a Muslim guy talking to me about the value of women, and it was after midnight ride from the clubs in Oxford to home. So mind you, I do get in these conversations real quick, anytime, any place. So we're talking about these topics, and he just starts talking about how important women are in Islam, and why men are so protective, etc. And the whole narrative that he was basically trying to sell me was around women are so valuable and precious, and we appreciate them so much, so that we need to ask them to cover up and not go to school and be safe at home, because what if they get raped, or what if they have to suffer the stresses of having a job, and I'm like, you just basically said that it's women's fault if they get raped because they were on the street and uncovered, and
My
it's women's
cousin,
fault,
I
or
am, yeah.
fault of choice for choosing to go have a job because they will experience stress, as if it's also on their shoulders that the system is unfair and works on the weaknesses of people and stressing them out and putting them in positions of lack of power where they have to slave in order to get a decent wage. And I don't think that this guy has ever unpacked the things that he was saying. And the thing is, if I was somebody else who didn't have the critical thinking and be like, wait a second, you just told me you want to protect women by covering them up because of men, and I'm like, you do not realize that it's men that you need to be actually caging away then, and just let women roam around, and this is the same conversation I had with a friend of mine a few years ago. We talked about curfew hours, and I said, if anything, men should have curfew hours, not women, because most crime is perpetuated by men against women, against children, against men. It's
Like, I
disproportionate.
have to disagree on that point. I do not think most crimes are perpetrated by men against women. I think women perpetrate crime against men as well. So I think a global statement I would not kind of go, but I do agree with your point that there is a cultural inclination that if a woman is not covered, or if a woman is not modest, it's okay for men or men to abuse her because it's her fault. I actually met, because I was trying to connect with Muslim women here, so I met women from University of Canterbury, and she was wearing a hijab. Now in Christchurch, it's not that big a deal because most people here are not Muslims, right? So it had to be her choice. And I was really curious on why she was wearing a hijab. And I asked her, would you mind if I ask you why you wear hijab? And she said that she started wearing it to protect her from a particular man, and then it became part of her personality.
Wow.
And I go, wow, okay. And then I look at myself. I have worn hijab, those ones that only have a slit, only for about a month. And I didn't wear hijab. I just wore a scarf on top of my head. And the moment I walked out of the house, I faced abused by men. So I do not know if you have experienced stripping someone naked on the streets with your eyes. There is such lust in their eyes that they would do that. They would sing songs, they would try and touch you in places just because you're not wearing hijab. And I have suffered through all of that, and I could have said, I'm going to protect myself, I'm going to wear this so that men can't see who I am. Because the whole theory was that if they can't see who I am, and if they try and do something to me, then what if I'm someone they know because they can't see who I am? So that's within women's circle, that's what we said. We should wear hijab, then they really don't know who is inside this, bag. And then they can't do anything to you. So the modesty part never came in. We were not taught that, you should do hijab because that's a sign of modesty. We were told wear hijab so that you're protected on the streets. And because everyone was wearing it and I wasn't, I had to cop it. And I chose not to do it. I chose still not to wear the hijab because it became more like an ego thing. And I'm like, okay, I am going to suffer through this because it's the wrong reason to wear the hijab. If I really wanted to wear the hijab, I would have, but I didn't. I tried it. I felt invisible and I didn't. I was married for 5 years, and it's still quite controversial because I say that I was maritally raped because there was no consent. There was no consent asked, and there was no consent given. And there was a lack of passivity at my end, and a lack of abuse, and a level of abuse, right? But it's a question mark. And my own cousin, she comes back to me and says, it is your fault that this happened to you because you could have said to him that you don't want to have sex or something like that. And I go, yeah, okay, she's right. Maybe it is my fault that I didn't say to him, hey, I don't want to have sex. But then let's go back to this system and let's see how, let's go back to this symptom and let's see how the system is supporting it. Women in Pakistan are kept away from all sex education until she gets married. So there is no sex education. There is no talk about sex. It's considered bad for a virgin girl to hear about sex. So what would happen is that when I got married, just a couple of weeks ago, before I got married, I was told what sex is. And my education was a man gets excited, his penis gets erect, he penetrates, ejaculates, and it's over. And that's all the education that I received about sex, right? I did not even know what to do. I did not even know about anatomy. I did not know about how a woman's body is supposed to respond or what a woman's body is or what a male body is. That's all. So I was not equipped to say, I don't want to have sex. No one told me that it's okay. What we were told was, it was not as an option. It's like, oh my God, can I just pretend to sleep so that I don't have to do this? And that was the only way I thought that I could avoid having sex.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 24, maybe 23 and a half, something like that. So from a cultural perspective, that's a late age because girls would get married at 18. The younger they are, the easier they are to tame, and the easier it is for them to settle into a new routine and find a new god or something like that. But so that was late. But even then, I was away from all any education, so I was not equipped. So then, is it right for someone to blame me that I did not say no?
No, it's not, because realistically speaking, if you've been brought up in a system where you are abused in and within the system, and you have to ask for permission to do anything from a male, then to get it's like they're making the choice for you. You're having sex now. The men decide. It's not it's not a women's choice kind of thing. It's not a, women are not empowered to be like, oh no, I don't want that, because every time that a decision needs to be made is the man who makes it, thinking about the system that rears you and basically shapes you and shapes the way you are with others, and the way you think about people and yourself is at fault, and I don't think you can be blamed for not knowing to say no, I don't want this, or it doesn't feel good, or I'm not in the mood, or I actually don't want to ever do it with you again, because if your basic choices around where you go, what you do, who you see, who you talk to are decided by people that are not you, you are a little bit like a victim of an institution, like, for instance, prisoners, they don't get to choose when they eat, when they sleep, what time the lights go on or off. They have absolutely zero input in how their day goes, especially in these really high security incarceration places. And when they go out of the system, they have no skill of choosing, of making a choice of what they eat, when they get up, when they go to bed. And that's why it's actually like discussed in social studies that this is why a lot of them would commit another crime and get back in, because they're so debilitated by the system. They have no choice, like they have no idea how to make a choice. And when it comes to, say, women in these very oppressive societies that literally deprive them of the opportunity to be choice makers and decision makers, then you feel like you can't decide. You are so used to maybe just relinquishing that responsibility and giving it to someone else, that even if someone is beating the crap out of you, you just think like, well, that's the decision and I just need to take it. It's what they see fit, and I just need to take it. That's it. So
It is so normalized
yeah.
that my cousin, so this is my own cousin, so I'm in the slums, right? So I'm growing up in all of these sorts of behaviors. So my cousin says, my mother is so old, she can't do the housework, I must get married now. And there is nothing wrong in saying that from the systematic perspective, because that's what the culture, the society, and the religion have turned women into. My cousin, she would clip her husband's nails, and if she get the skin, sometimes by mistake, then she would be slapped. My aunties, they were slapped, and or they were beaten with belts, and even then all of that is okay. And all of this is possible because some powerful men say that men are better than women and women should not have a choice. And I think that as individuals, I was able to free myself from that cage because I did not accept the status quo. My punishment was to be alone in that journey. That was my punishment, because I did not accept the culture. I did not accept the norm. But you're right, when I got out, I went, oh, I'm now in Singapore. People are asking, what do I want? I don't know what do I want, because no one has taught me to think about what do I want. So people would say, what do you want to wear? Oh, I do not know what do I want to wear. I do not know how to wear Western clothes. I've always, bought clothes and with other people, and there's no, it's a strange thing not to know who you are because a system has crushed one.
Yeah, they've modeled you into their own ideal person, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's there's a thing, like, I think we grow up in a context and we take it as normal, and
Yes.
this is why and we'll, you know, just go along with it, whatever it is. And the problem with this is that children that are abused, you know, they grow up, and until someone tells them, "Oh, this is not cool what happened to you," they have zero point of reference, you know. And they really don't understand that what they were asked to do, or what was done to them was not okay, and it was not consensual, and they could basically turn around and be like, "You abused me, you molested me," and this, because when they're young, they have no understanding. They don't have the vocabulary, they don't have the knowledge of these things. And to blame women who are married, they could have said no when they never had that education, is like to blame a child that should have cried and said like, "Don't touch me," you know. And I'm like, seriously, like it's no different. These two people who had no education and no say, and they have been systematically manipulated and silenced by a system or by a person, it doesn't really matter, but the result is the same. They felt like they don't matter, they felt like they don't have a choice, they felt like if they said anything there will be punishment for it in one way or another, and they didn't have anyone to turn to, or they didn't feel like they have. So it's not that different to me. To me, a person that doesn't understand the concept or a problem is as innocent when it comes to you know, blame, especially when it comes to abuse, as a child. You know, all we can do is educate people, in my opinion, you know. And we can say like, take ownership of what has happened to you, and I think that's part of the journey, in my opinion. But you can't really just say they should have said no. That's victim blaming, and I do understand why people say it, but in the same time I'm like, yeah, but there are so many things that contributed to this ending up in that way, that you can't just go like blame them for
Right.
it.
And that's where the interruption of the system comes into play, right? Because in a way, when they blame the victims, they are also following the cultural norm. They are believing in that cultural norm that it's a woman's fault. And then it goes even deeper. It's like, okay, you know, that at the very base, then that sits a woman is supposed to be modest. So in Pakistan, there are lots of honor killings. I do not know Mukhtar Mai. I'm not sure whether you've heard her name, but she was. So this was a few years ago. So do you know what a tribal, communal, or I do not know what the term would be, but it's within a small community. Instead of going to the police, they would go to that elders, let's call them elders in a community. You would go to them to settle disputes. There was a boy and a girl, brother and sister, and the brother had just talked to a girl from another community or whatever. And because it was a shameful thing to do, the elders decided that his sister should be raped by 4 men in front of everybody, because that's her punishment, so that they bring dishonor to the family. So the whole idea, and this became a big news. She has written a book. She is amazing because she never gave in. She was uneducated. She didn't know where to go. No one supported her, but she went, and then she continued fighting. And it actually happened to her. They dragged her and raped her. 4 men raped her one by one. And that was the punishment, because the idea is that if a woman is covered, if a woman is at home, then she is the honor. She is carrying the honor of the family. So if she does anything that the family deems inappropriate, then it's the family's honor at stake. And
but she wasn't at fault, from what I understand. That you said it was her brother. that
That's right.
did the wrong thing, and yet
Actually,
she got.
I think I may not remember exactly what what exactly happened, but it wasn't her fault. But it was all around her or her brother talking to someone from the opposite gender from another tribe, and that was it. And that was the punishment, because the whole idea of women holding the honor of the family, right, that sits at the base of this system, where if a woman is carrying the honor, then she must be shamed, because if she's not shamed, she will say, oh, I want to have sex, and I want to have fun, and I want to laugh, and I want to go out and, you know, roll my hair in the air, you know, that she can't do all of that. And to stop her from doing all of that, we say, okay, we will keep her like this. We will say she has got the responsibility of the honor of the family. And that's what happens a lot of the time. Some of those things, they come out in the media, other things they don't.
So it's in a way.
This is the system. Sorry?
So in a way, what I understand is that giving women this honorable status is actually the double-edged sword that society
Absolutely.
literally pushes inside of them and kills them with when it, I don't know, when it deems right, and uses them as a weapon against their family in this case, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if I'm
How?
not wearing hijab, people go to my parents and say, oh, how are you raising your child? So it's my actions represent my parents' value system, which happens in the West to a certain extent. Obviously, if the children are into drugs or something like that, it goes back to parents, right? So it happens at different levels, but over there it happens at the very basic level of sanity and existence, because a woman must become invisible if she were to carry the honor of her family.
So it's in a way, like it's the whole mix. It's the religious side, which says we must honor women. It's the honor of the family is within women in the family, like they hold the honor. Then it's the cultural aspect of, like, you need to obey these social rules, not only for Allah but for your family as well, and for you to be seen as worthy of anything close to respect. And then it's the whole normalization of that structure that makes people, well, women, so disempowered, because they don't really have a choice. They are supposedly representing an honor, you know, but they themselves are so much dishonored through this whole process. They're so disrespected from what I can, you know, perceive as the reality, because they have no self-authority over their bodies, over their choice, over their education in most cases, over their life partner, because we know about arranged marriages, etc. And I think this whole, and that's, I think the point that I made earlier is that whole honor title and expectation is actually the way that women are oppressed in Islam or Islamic cultures, or I don't know. And it's not, I don't think it stops with the Middle East. I think that, like, collectivistic societies, including Chinese societies and whatever, you know, the Far East as well, where it's very collectivistic as a society, there's a lot of shame involved if the family members are not what they should be. And that's why gay people in China, for instance, pretend to be straight and marry opposite sex people, but keep on having these gay relationships in secret, and they live in this lie for the sake of their families. But it's that kind of oppression. It's like this honor thing seems more is a double-edged sword that cuts you no matter how you use it, than actually serves you any good purpose.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned some very good point about the collective versus individual culture. So in those cultures, the collective is better than individual. So the individual must not think about themselves. And then if we say that as a base point, now that was good. So I think if we go back historically, Islam came in Arabic Peninsula between nomads, right? Tribal communities, which had a lot of these sorts of tribal ways of living, where being part of a group really mattered, because otherwise you wouldn't survive, right? So I think a lot of those, I guess, behaviors, patterns, and ways of thinking have kind of continued and perpetuated in that sort of way. Now, I believe, well, not, even if it's good, too much of a good is also not so great. So everything is good in moderation, everything is good in balance. In a culture where it's too much focus on individuals, where sometimes in Western cultures there is, that's also not so good, because one cannot live in isolation. We are a social creatures, and we do live with other people, and there is a value in give and take, and being part of a group, and conforming to some of the rules of how one negotiates with people. But to make that work in a country like Pakistan, they crush them from the inside so that they do not think about themselves, which is completely the other side of extreme. And that's what creates the damage. And the only way to do, I mean, I didn't even know, when I was in Pakistan, I did not know the damage that I was under. I had no idea. All I knew was there's something wrong. I don't know what it is, but there's something wrong, and I got to get out of here. And that's all I knew. It was only when I started living in Singapore that I realized, oh my God, that was wrong. Oh, that was abuse. Oh, that was marital rape. I did not know that while I lived in Pakistan.
It does take us a lot of time to process and understand a lot of things we go through. And I think that's the biggest problem a lot of the time, is that people don't do this introspection. They don't go to therapy, they don't change, they don't move, and this causes them to stay stuck and not be able to actually reevaluate or evaluate, not even reevaluate the system and the conditions that they live in. For instance, even though Bulgaria is trying to be much like the West and the progressive boohoo, Bulgarians are extremely homophobic as a culture, as a nation. And I had a friend from high school who pretended so hard to be straight. And it was only when he moved away to Western Europe, to a very developed and sex positive and gay positive country, where he came out, and where he felt like it's okay, to be himself, and understood how the system has brainwashed him into believing that he's not a worthy person unless he's straight. And for some people who never move away, even when it comes to that kind of very out there aggression towards gay people in Bulgaria, they will never see it, they will never really understand it. And when it comes to the microaggressions, the subtle abuse that happens because of the system and religion or norms in society, then it will take even longer for a lot of people to assimilate and to understand how that has impacted them and where they need healing. But it does take attachment.
Yeah, it becomes so ingrained that it's normal, and that's what, so the more, I mean, I do see a lot of women are raising their voices, a lot of female women are raising their voices. So I'm not sure whether you know, but in Denmark, this is the world's first female imam mosque. So in Pakistan, women are not allowed to go to mosques. So I've never been to mosques in Pakistan growing up. But this, so obviously, and mullahs, he's always the male who is calling for the prayer. But in Denmark, in Copenhagen, her name is Shirin Ken. I do not know if I'm pronouncing it right, but she is the first female imama who actually calls for prayer. And I think that's amazing. I think Islam needs to go this way, and more of women need to raise their voices to say, no, actually, even if you say that Islam, I would not believe you. Even if you say you're powerful and you know everything, I don't think you're right. Because unless we think for ourselves, we are going to continue to buy into the patriarchal interpretation of Quran, which actually does not serve us today.
Yeah, and I think that all of the religious texts that we've had, the problem, say, with the Bible, the Quran, in my knowledge, hasn't changed since its first writing. But the Bible has changed, like First Testament, Second Testament, Book of Mormon, Book of Jehovah. I don't know, so many. But it has changed so much, and the thing is that every translation has been done by males, and every interpretation therefore is male biased, and we do need to push for female input into these things, and push for
female prophets. We need female prophets.
Hallelujah. Indeed, definitely. And you know,
and we need the goddess. We need to ask her for mercy. We don't need to ask him for mercy. We ask her for mercy. We say she gives us gifts. And I think these are the subtle things. Imagine a mother, saying, Allah, Jesus, whatever their God may be, and then say, oh, I hope she's with me today. And then children will go, what, who are you talking about? Because we are so used to hearing the he that it would be such a different. But imagine if we started calling Allah she, Allah, God, she today. And if we all did that, that would be so cool, because suddenly we'll create this wave of change, because so many people will hear it. And if we only need the 100 people to create the critical mass, right? And then it just kind of flies. And imagine what kind of impact just such a simple thing will have on the whole of women, because suddenly you're saying, actually, goddess is gender neutral, but I shall call her she.
Yeah, why stick with he?
And I must say, I struggle with it, because for the last 46 years, I have said he. So I myself struggle with it. So it is my aim to start calling Allah, God, she. And let's see, I do it sometimes, but I mean, it's all kind of, repetition, and then it becomes habit. And then maybe one person says it today, and 2 tomorrow, and then 3 in a month's time. And suddenly we have a wave of a recognition of gender of women at a level that's a really good starting point, because we are saying, no, women do matter. Women do matter.
So fascinating. I wanna it's when I was a kid, I was so fascinated by mythical gods. Obviously we called them mythical, and I'm like, why mythical? Like, they were legit in their time, God Ra, and then Zeus and Aphroditus, and the Greeks had so many female goddesses. It's not like it was only Zeus or I don't know, like, I'm confusing them right now because I studied them like over 2 decades ago probably. But that's the thing, it's fascinating that we did have female gods, and something just someone fired the female gods and the many male gods, and decided we need to just have the one. For whatever reason, I think that having god of thunder and goddess of love and a god of war, all of these, it sounds more cool. But nobody asks me. I'm not in a position of power. Don't have the power to fire the current gods that we have and re-recruit the previous ones.
Oh God, yeah. We can do that ourselves, because part of it is we don't need to buy in what we hear. We can say, okay, so I mean, I do not, you did say that you're an atheist, and that's cool. But even when you do mention God in any conversation, you don't really have to believe in a God to be able to talk about her.
Yeah.
You could just talk about her, and suddenly people hear, what, she, what is going on?
Why are you
And then
saying she? And I'll be like, why not?
yeah, that's right.
You have a problem?
Yeah.
Sure.
And I learned, so I was doing some research on Quran, and I learned that in Arabic, there is no word or pronoun for gender neutral. So in Quran, it would say he when Quran means a person, and it would also say he when Quran means male, and it would say she when Quran means a female. So he is used as a male, and he is used as a gender neutral person, which means if you go to a male to interpret the text, when Quran says a person, they might say Adam. So the Surah Al-Nisa, in the creation statement, the Quran says Allah created a person, and from it, its partner, right? But the cultural interpretation of that statement is God created Adam and then Eve. But that's actually not what Quran says at all. But we buy into it. All my life, I believed God created Adam and then Eve. Another something we can start to say, no, that's not true. God created Eve first, because we just don't know. We just know God created a person and its partner. We don't know who came first. So why not just say Quran, Allah created Eve first? And these are the subtle things we as women, I don't know, I feel like we have the responsibility, because we are now shaping the future of our next generations, our next generation of daughters. And if we don't start bringing this language into our language, we are creating and perpetuating the same thing again and again. And maybe not to a same extent that our people who came before us did, and maybe not to the same extent that things happen in Pakistan, right? So, but still, I think these are the things we can do as individuals. We don't need to go out and, you know, join this fight and war. We can just change these subtle things in our own behavior and think of women as equal, together, worthy of respect, worthy of honor, and their honor is not tied to anything else. Just you know, I don't know, normal, I suppose.
Having worth because it's a human being, and not because it's virgin, or
Yeah.
because it serves you dinner, or you know, whatever it is, you know, man, woman, doesn't matter. It's a human being. Can we not treat it
Absolutely.
with respect? And there's I feel like we're going into the healing, and you've gone into the societal type of healing of like, what can we change as society and individuals in order to impact the future of our children and how they perceive themselves in this context. But what can individuals do? Because like, you've had such a long process to actually get to understand what abuse you have suffered growing up and in your marriage as well, to get the healing going. What if someone now is watching this and they are just now realizing and unpacking how unfair, how unjust, how disrespectful, or how abused they have been? What would you suggest? What is the healing process? Is there one? Like,
How long is
you
a
know,
piece
people
of
want one
string?
pill. That's it. One pill to solve everything.
When
So what would
I
be?
So when I went to Singapore, this is me at a point. So I create a clear timeline. So this is my time in Pakistan, and then I'm come to Singapore, not knowing anything. I just know I'm now free, and I go to so the first thing is, what choices do I have? And the automatic choices to be familiar, to be in a familiar environment. And so I could, wherever I go, create a little Pakistan. And if I do that, then I am perpetuating the same belief in my mind, right? So for me to open up, let's not even talk about therapy or going to counselors, right? For me to open my mind, I need to experience another perspective. If I experience another perspective and I say, that doesn't feel right, I go back to my previous one. You always have the choice. But for me to do that, what I had to do was I had to say, I'm not going to choose the familiar. I'm not going to actually create my little Pakistan. I am going to hang out with Westerners. I'm going to see how they think and how they behave. I don't have to do everything that they say. I will choose. But unless I do that, I won't learn for myself. I won't open up to what is available to me. And it's only through experimentation. Someone asked me, do you want to do horse riding? It's like, what? Horse riding? That did not make any sense. And at that point in time, I had a choice to say, this is unfamiliar. I have never done it. I'm not going to do it. But I said, I'm going to try it. And I did. And I loved it. And I love horses are so important to me. They have been such a part of my healing journey. But I could only do that because I chose to say yes. If I have always worn hijab, right? And if I don't know what it's like not to wear a hijab, how can I make a choice for myself?
In a way, you're saying the openness to experience and the evaluation of that new experience is what is, in your opinion, the first step to actually unpacking who you really are and where your freedom is, and understanding yourself basically for the first time.
I mean, fixed beliefs is where if I always say, no, a woman is supposed to be modest, because of course I grew up with all of those things, right? They still are to a certain extent part of my subconscious programming. So for me to unpack that, first I have to expose myself to an environment where women are empowered, which I was able to do because I was in Singapore. Then I have to learn what empowered women do and how do they say no. What kind of things they do, what kind of things they think about themselves. And I look at that and I go, wow, a woman can decide that she wants to have sex or she doesn't want to have sex. Oh my God, I have the choice. And suddenly the brain opens up because I create an environment around me of empowered women and then say, I'm going to learn from them. So, but if I was, it's a hard thing to do because in Pakistan, it is harder to do because obviously the environment around me supports such behavior. And in that case, you need a mentor, you need someone who you listen to. Like if someone right now from Pakistan is listening to what I'm saying, and maybe they are going, oh my God, I'm accepting all of these things that I am not, then suddenly the path has opened up for them because they are now not stuck, no longer stuck, because they have now the ability to think and ability to question. So I think it's the ability to question and ability to think, which happens either you expose yourself to a new environment without judgment, because obviously it would be very easy for me to say, oh, I'm a Muslim woman, oh my God, they're infidels, I am not going to talk to them because they are not supposed, they are infidels or something like that. But keep the judgment aside, open myself up, and then see what comes up. And I'm not saying that I haven't done any therapy. I would have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I think it's all worth it, because if I am a better person as a result, and if I am a compassionate person, if I respect others, if I am a better human being, what else would I want? Then all of that is worth it.
Definitely. So would you like to, because we're 8:20, would you like to share some like gems of wisdom, or maybe tell us about something that you see is really important and it's not said enough or talked about enough? Anything that you would like to just be like, really, I need to say this now?
I think we have talked about quite a lot of things. We've gone everywhere, but I don't think so. I think my vision and my dream is that we just stop accepting the status quo. We just stop accepting norms as norms, right? Because that's the step number one in our journey, right? For me, that happened when I got to Singapore. Or maybe for me, that happened when my mother said that mullah is talking rubbish. That's when it happened, right? That's when the seed was planted. And then the life unfolded for me, right? But if I am not open to someone like my mother who said something like a question, a norm, then I have nowhere to go, right? So the openness is openness and respect and curiosity. They are the ways, right? And then once I'm curious, I go, oh, that flower looks nice, and I can pick that flower and I can smell the flower, and I go, oh, it actually calms my soul because I have smelled the, it's such a beautiful smell. And it's only through opening my eyes to what's around me and what else is there, being curious, being non-judgmental, and then allowing life, universe, God, Allah to then show signs, right? And then we go, uh-oh, I have been abused and I do not know how to be intimate because I can't trust men. Suddenly you go, I gotta go to a therapist. So I went to a hypnotherapist to work on specific things. I have done a lot of therapy. I have done a lot of modalities, body work, counseling, meditation, workshops, all sorts of different things, which I think are healing. I think is a lifestyle, because I think we all are carrying some level of trauma, no matter how it is. And I think that if we say healing doesn't mean I am broken, healing means that I am willing to look inside and then explore more. But if I hadn't done all of that, I would still be stuck. I would still be not free, even if I had lived in other countries. I mean, I know many Pakistani women and Indian women who are living in Western countries, but they are living in their little Pakistan and little India. They are not opening themselves to other cultures because of all of that brainwashing that's part of what they have grown up with. And that's where you're perpetuating the cycle. So it doesn't really matter where you live.
But that's, there is this demonization of Western ideas and Western behaviors and Western they have been killing honor killings in the UK as well, of very young teenage girls that go like, hell no, I'm not doing this, I'm not marrying at 13 or 15, I'm not going back to Pakistan for you to wed me. And that has happened even here, but there is this huge demonization of anything that's different, and it's sold as against Allah, against your family. That I think it's extremely difficult, and we do need more support networks for people who want to break out of that seclusion and that isolation from their small Pakistan or India or, I don't know, Uzbekistan, whatever, it doesn't matter. If there needs to be more like guidance for people who are trying to walk the path of the unknown, of the unsecure, and they need support. You still have your mom, and your mom is very supportive, and she's been, as much as she could have been, your rock through the process, but a lot of people don't have that. And that's why I want.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, and some of the things I have been done is that I have found groups that I could be part of. And those groups didn't need to be that complicated. Like I was part of a bushwalking group when I was in Sydney, and that became, so when I'm in the bush, in the green, I feel peaceful. Trees do something to me that I don't really know and how to describe. And that's saying that creating opportunities to heal the soul, right? Then, so that's one level of lifestyle things. The other levels is that I'm part of many Facebook groups. A lot of them are around PTSD and sexual abuse, as well as domestic abuse survivors.
Mm.
So being part of this group, so one of the things is that obviously for me to say I was raped, it's quite a big thing to say, and it's easier to say it if I'm surrounded by people who would not judge it, or who have been through the same experience and things like that. And there are so many groups that I am part of as well. Plus I have just started my own group as well. So the Unshaming project is a website, is a Facebook page, as well as a members only group. So that members only group is only for people who are allowed in. The comments are moderated. There are rules around respect and support and things like that. And those groups, they're really sacred spaces for people to talk about themselves, because we fear judgment, so we don't talk about what's not working. But if we are not judged, then we can allow ourselves to open up. I have also been part of Circling group, and that has been quite transformational as well, which is a non-judgmental space where one person gets 20 minutes and everyone else just listens and asks questions from curiosity rather than from judgment. And that has been huge, to have 5 people listen to me and say I'm important, that they're going to spend 20 minutes of their lives on me. Wow, that's quite an experience. And part of my aims is to start something like that in Christchurch, but obviously it's a face-to-face thing, right? So then there are Facebook groups, there's this, and then there are online courses, and the world is expansive. One can just kind of get lost in the world of healing, I suppose.
Yeah. And what I'm excited, I don't know how much you want to say about this, but I know that you do want to create some courses and some materials and videos that people can watch and start the journey of exploring these topics that we've discussed in more depth, and how religion is used, how cultural norms are used against people, specifically women. Do you want to share about these and share what you want to do?
Yeah, so the YouTube channel that there are only a few videos, and it's only been a couple of weeks that I have gotten myself to do all of that, because previously all of my things were under Healing Wounds Together. So I'm just kind of transferring and doing all sorts of bits. But basically what I want to do is use videos to actually start questioning these norms. So like one of my video is titled, which is not up yet, it is going to be in a couple of weeks. It says, what if God created Eve first? Which is what we talked about. But if they're available as a video, then it can be accessible, and maybe someone looks at it and then go, yeah, that I like that, and I'm going to call Allah he or she, sorry. So all of these sorts of little things, one step at a time kind of thing. So also you can sign up to my mailing list on the Unshaming Project website. So it's the unshamingproject.org. That's the website name. And say hello to me. You can always contact me, and I would be more than happy to share whatever I have to share. Like we are all kind of in this together. No one knows more or less. We all know really valuable things, and we can share those things with each other and help each other grow. Right? That's what we can do.
It is. I think it's really important what you do, and this is the reason why I really wanted you to join us for a webinar. And I'm sure there's so much that we didn't really touch on, and Ruby, I'm sorry, but this must not be the first and only time I have you on for a webinar, because we've got so much more to discuss, and a lot more on the healing and the growth, and you mentioned a few of the things that you've done, but the whole process is the depth of it is excruciatingly important. A lot of people don't even know what's out there, so maybe we should schedule another one where we talk about the healing process and recovery from that kind of trauma and system abuse, etc., that people may not have even conceived that there's there's such a thing. And the other thing is that sometimes if there isn't anything, yeah, you've got someone say, yes, come back, Ruby. We will have her back. Ruby, I'm
Yeah.
going to find you and put you in a chair and be like, talk to people. But it's extremely important to have these conversations and to explain to people how things are done, because even if there isn't something like the circle group that you mentioned, maybe people can basically educate themselves and create their own spaces where they can facilitate these groups with other like-minded people who need it, and be the change, be part of the change, be part of the drive, because we do need people that would take more leadership when there is none. And it will be really good to share these interesting insights from your experience and ideas of how communities can be formed, how people can seek their own journey independently, and without having to I don't know, without having to disclose to close family, because sometimes that could be very daunting, because a lot of the time people around us do try to push us back where we were, and that's counterproductive. So I personally have found myself in positions where I didn't want to say that I want to do something, or that I'm embarking on a journey or whatever. I just did it and then told people, and they were like, why didn't you tell me? Well, because I knew that you wouldn't be supportive, So it is important for people to understand how there could be ways of helping themselves independently without people's support.
Well,
Immediate.
I love talking. I
I
love
do.
talking. I can just talk and talk.
I know, and it's great. And I want to encourage the attendees in.
I just see a comment, say, thank you,
Yeah,
Ruby, you're wrong. Thank you.
thank you indeed. Please, if you have questions, you guys, unless Ruby needs to run, we can take a few questions. And do you have to run, Ruby? Do you have something?
No, I'm all
One.
right.
Yeah, okay. Not gonna take your whole day, I promise. But if people want to say something right now, or ask a question, or encourage us to do another webinar on a more specific topic, please do. I would also say you can always contact Ruby via her website, theunshamingproject.com. Is that correct?
.org.
Oh, .org. theunshamingproject.org. Or you can find my website on lifesexperts.com and contact us and say what you want from future webinars and talks that we can do with Ruby and with other people as well. Do you have anything else here? Let me just check. I think we've gone through the list, but we could have gone in so much more depth, we don't have questions right now, but I do encourage people, if they do want to ask Ruby questions, do go visit her website and drop her a line. If you want us to do more topics, give us ideas, give us names, give us thoughts and feedback. I'm grateful for everybody that joined here in Zoom and also on Facebook Live, and to Ruby for joining in. I must say I'm in the UK. It's like 8 p.m. here, and Ruby is in New Zealand on the other side of the globe. So it's what time over there?
It's now 9:30 a.m.
9:30 a.m. So I am so glad we made it. And I also want to say we will be using part of these webinars for our own social media networks, etc. But both of us have a newsletter. Both of us. Do you have a newsletter? You have a.
I used to, and because I'm now switching to the new website, from the new website, it hasn't gone yet. So I'm still kind of in the process of transferring everything. So a newsletter will come out soon.
But you guys, if you want to be part of our newsletters and also learn about future events and projects that we do, just join us via our websites and be blessed with the content that we create for you for free. There we go. We've got someone sending a big message, so I need to put my glasses on.
Someone is saying they're in the US and it's 3:30 p.m.
Wow, thank you for joining us from, again, on the other side of the pond. This is a great first webinar for me. Hey Ruby, do I say a name? I'm not sure. I prefer not to say the names. And another one says, thank you both. It was really good to be a part of this webinar. I've been here since the beginning and definitely want Ruby to come back and to speak more about women's empowerment. See, Ruby, you are very much in demand already. We haven't said goodbye and you're in demand.
I'm really touched, and it's quite a big deal for me to know that what I am saying is time is precious. Time is the only resource it's just so precious for someone to spend their time listening to me. So I'm really grateful that you do. Thank you. Oh, joining someone from Iraq. Wow.
Wow.
11:45 p.m. I'm so glad we have got a global community here.
Wow, that's amazing. Please do join us in the future. I personally run regular events like webinars on everything sex and relationships related. So if you've joined us via lifesexperts.com, just go and join for the future events. And when there is, because there will be, when there is another one with Ruby, you will be first to know from my newsletter. And
thank you so much again.
Yeah.
Also, we have got one more comment.
Really liked you, Ruby. Hope you get to see you in more webinars. Definitely.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Leah. I really appreciate you taking the time to ask these questions and to be curious. To be curious
so
from another perspective. Thank you.
It's so valuable, and I appreciate your time, Ruby. And we've done so much talking before the webinar, and we will continue.
Yes, we have.
But it's been an honor. Honestly, it's been great, and I want to see you do more stuff and touch the people that really need you and your voice and your words and your process, because you've got something extremely valuable that needs to be out there for people. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just I want to give you a big hug just like that now. Oh. Honestly, like Ruby. Oh. Okay, well, it's 37 past and we're running a bit late, but hey, people are not complaining yet. Ruby, once again, thank you so much, and we will do another webinar for sure. And I wish you to have a wonderful day. And for the other people, whatever time of the day it is, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful afternoon or night or whatever. And we'll see you again in the near future with another webinar with Ruby and other webinars on other topics as well.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate that.
Indeed. All right. Okay, well, see you guys. I'm ending this meeting now. It's difficult to say bye, but I gotta. All right. Good night, everybody. Bye.